I like Clemson to win this. I like them to win it big. I don't think Notre Dame can hang with them at all in this game. Give me Clemson to win big in the Cotton Bowl this year. What's up, everybody? It's your host, Knup, here with the Sports in Vegas Odds podcast. Welcome back to the show, another episode, and today we're going to talk about college football. It's bowl season, the best time of the year. Very excited for many of these games that are getting ready to take place starting this weekend. I'm recording this as of Wednesday, the 12th. We start games on the 15th, so we have about 40 bowl games as they do every season, 39 I believe, plus the national championship. And I'm going to dive into 5, 6, 7 of those. I won't go through every one and bore you guys with all of my analysis, but I will go through some of the big ones, talk about who I like, talk about some of the storylines that go around them, and hopefully it helps you as you're capping and betting these in Vegas or wherever you're betting on these games. So first of all, we are vegasodds.com. Head on out there. You can see all sorts of sports information, not only college football, but you can see articles around football, strategy, picks, predictions, all sorts of stuff, along with odds, of course, from all the major sports and many of the sports books. So head on out there, check us out, and that's my little plug. But thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Definitely appreciate it each and every time as we grow this podcast. So please share it with your friends, share it with people. And if you happen to know a host or not a host, a guest or somebody that would like to, that would be a good guest for this show, we'd like to start bringing guests on. So please feel free to hit us up on social media, wherever we're on Instagram, we're out on Twitter. You can hit us up out there anytime and we can talk. So without further ado, let's get going. Let's talk about some of the games. Again, college football bowls start on December 15th. 40 bowls, including the national championship. The college football playoff is set. We have 4 teams that made it. We have Alabama, we have Clemson, we have Notre Dame, and we have Oklahoma. A couple of the teams that got maybe left out, as many are talking about, is Georgia and Ohio State. Came in 5th and 6th, right behind that top 4. A lot of controversy once again around UCF, who has won 25 straight games, noting back to last year. They just continue winning, yet they don't get a shot at winning the national championship. We'll talk about that later when I talk about that game, but little controversy there as well. And yeah, lots of games, lots of good stuff. So it does start December 15th, but we're going to fast forward. We're going to jump to December 29th, where some of the big bowls start happening. You know, typically the first couple weeks is fun and exciting because there's a lot of action, a lot of games, but they're smaller schools, smaller games. The 15th, the 18th, the 19th, the 20th. There's a handful of games each of those days. And then the action really gets started, 26th, 27th of December, right after Christmas. And I want to jump into the 29th, and I want to talk about the Goodyear Cotton Bowl to start with, where we have Clemson and Notre Dame. So this is a college football playoff game, 2 versus 3. A big game. And I want to talk about this and give you actually a pick for this game. So Notre Dame's coming into this game 12-0, hasn't lost all year. Clemson's 13-0, so they haven't lost as well. But I think the big difference in this game is Notre Dame has not really faced the talent that Clemson has. Notre Dame, they played Michigan the first game of the season, but they did have a different quarterback at that time. They've since switched quarterbacks to Ian Book, who has had a great year. But he hasn't faced anybody. I mean, if you look at their schedule, Pitt and Syracuse, some of those type teams are the best teams they've played. They have not played the same schedule as a Clemson has out of the SEC. And so I think they're going to struggle here. I think what you're going to see, this Clemson defense is for real. I mean, they are big time. They are big. Their offensive line, their defensive line, everything about them is just big. I think you're going to see a real men versus boys scenario here. I think Clemson, they're listed as 11-point favorites. I would actually say they should be maybe 13, 14-point favorites, and I wouldn't be surprised if that line moves closer to that as the game gets closer. I like Clemson to win this. I like them to win it big. I don't think Notre Dame can hang with them at all in this game. Give me Clemson to win big in the Cotton Bowl this year. And that would move Clemson on to the championship game, which does take place later in January on January 7th. So I like Clemson to win and advance to the national championship on the 7th. All right, we move to the Capital One Orange Bowl, which is the other college football playoff game between Alabama and Oklahoma. Alabama's 13-0, Oklahoma's 12-1. This is the 1 versus 4 matchup. I mean, Alabama, each and every year they do this, right? They are the cream of the crop when we're talking about college football. They are the best of the best. They kind of had a little scare last game out, though, when Tua, their quarterback, went out. Luckily, they have another All-American quarterback right behind him in Jalen Hurts, who's just been waiting to get in and play, and he played a great game. But I think they're a different team if Tua is truly hurt and doesn't play. Now, I think the talk is he is going to play. He should be back. He'll be out a couple weeks here, but should be good for this game on December 29th. So he has some resting time, which is nice. If he plays, I like Alabama to win this game. I think they're a better team than Oklahoma. Oklahoma simply just can't stop anybody. They're going to want to get into a shootout with Alabama. And Alabama's going to score at will on this Oklahoma defense. Now, can Oklahoma score at will on Alabama? I don't necessarily think so. I think they'll score plenty of points, and I think they'll kind of keep this game close. The Marquise Brown injury for Oklahoma concerns me a little, but I think it wasn't so serious that he'll be back. I think he'll be back, but that is still to be determined, so keep an eye on that as you're capping and betting this game in Vegas. But I like Alabama to win. I like Oklahoma to cover. The line is at 14. So 14, I like Oklahoma plus 14. Keep this game close. Alabama should advance, but I think Oklahoma is the bet in this one for me. So Alabama advances to play Clemson on January 7th is my bet. I'll come back with a podcast once that's final. We'll try to do one beginning of the year to talk about the national championship game, so I won't be guessing on who's going there. All right, we move to New Year's Day, January 1st, where I want to talk about a couple games. There's a handful of games, but I'm only going to talk about 3 or 4 of them here for the sake of time. So first, we'll talk about Penn State at Kentucky. Penn State versus Kentucky in Orlando. Penn State's historically good in bowl games. They've had a really nice tradition dating back to when Joe Paterno coached there. They've always been good in bowl games, and now they get a Kentucky team that I think is a little fluky of a record this year. I just don't think they're that good. I've watched them several times, and I just don't think they're as good as their record indicates. I think Penn State rolls in this one. They're 6.5-point favorites. I like Penn State to win this big, at least by more than a touchdown. Give me Penn State in the Citrus Bowl. All right, we move to the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl, where we have LSU versus UCF. LSU's 9-3, and UCF is 12-0. I told you we'd talk about this earlier. We'd talk about it again, but UCF has won 25 straight games dating back to last year. We all know what happened last year. They went undefeated. They felt they got robbed and didn't, make the top 4. And then they went in and they beat on Auburn in the bowl game and kind of even more proof. And so everyone in Orlando around UCF is claiming national champions, UCF undefeated. They were the, with a disclaimer, with a asterisk, they were the national champions. And so if they can win this one, they're undefeated again. They got LSU, who's a good SEC team. If they win this one, are they back-to-back champs? I think they are. I think they can claim that they're back-to-back champs. And it's kind of frustrating. I'm not a UCF fan. I do live in Orlando, so a little disclaimer there. But it's a little frustrating that UCF doesn't get a shot here. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if it's expanding the playoff to more teams. People talk, 8 teams would do it. But then the 9 and 10 teams are going to be mad. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think it would be nice to see if UCF truly had a chance to win the national championship. It's kind of deflating when a team's won 25 in a row and they don't have a chance to win at all. And so I really personally hope they beat LSU because I want the NCAA to really look at this again. And I think that would open their eyes again. So LSU, they're having a good season. They're seeking their first 10-win season since 2013. So it is one of their better seasons in recent past. UCF has some concerns as their quarterback, their main offensive weapon, went out. And now he, last week was their first week with the backup. The backup did well, but it was against Memphis. And he showed he can compete and he can score. UCF is 7.5-point underdogs in this one. I'm taking them. I'm taking the Knights plus 7.5, plus a touchdown and a half. I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. I think they're going to compete with LSU. I don't necessarily like LSU's offense. That defense is always good. I'm going to take UCF in this one. All right, we move to the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl, we have Washington and Ohio State. Washington and Ohio State. This is a funny one because Ohio State kind of felt robbed, right? They felt robbed they didn't make the top 4, but that game against Purdue just killed them. You cannot overcome a huge loss to a mediocre team like that, and now they're paying for it. I think initially when this line came out and when this game came out, everybody loved Washington. Ohio State was 5-6 point favorites, and people just were pounding. The sharp money was on Washington. Everybody loved Washington, saying that Ohio State was gonna come out flat, had nothing to play for. They're upset they're not in the playoff scenario, so they're not gonna play hard. Well, that has been twisted around now when Urban Meyer, the coach of Ohio State, has come out and said he's retiring after this season, and officially this is his last game coaching Ohio State. Well, if that's not motivation enough for the Buckeyes to play hard, I don't know what is. These guys love Urban Meyer. Ohio State loves Urban Meyer. They're going to want nothing more than to compete for him in this last game. I can't see a scenario that they don't work their tails off to really win this game and win this game big. I'm leaning back towards Ohio State now. I think the line has now shifted back, and it's Ohio State -6.5 as we speak. I like Ohio State to win. I think they win big. I think they send Urban Meyer off in great fashion, and I think Washington kind of got unlucky with that announcement, and I don't think they'll compete with Ohio State very well here. All right, we move to the final game. I'm going to talk about the All-State Sugar Bowl. The Sugar Bowl where Texas is 9-4 going against Georgia at 11-2. I think this is a mismatch as well. Georgia's a much better team. We saw Georgia compete with Alabama, and if it didn't come down to one decision, one play, we would see Georgia in the college football playoff. But they had Alabama on the ropes, and they made a decision to go for it on 4th down. Did not convert, and Alabama won that game, knocking Georgia out of contention. I mean, everybody's still arguing that they should be there, but they're not. They are now in the Sugar Bowl going up against a 9-4 Texas team. I think Georgia's going to. I mean, I think they're a better team than Texas, but I think they're gonna. I don't know. I just think they're not going to play real well in this game. Kind of like I was talking about with Ohio State. Maybe not a lot to play for. Maybe wishing they were somewhere else. And I think Texas has a kind of a chip on their shoulder this year. They're 9-4. One of the stats I like to look at, so Tom Herman, the coach of Texas, has been an underdog 23 times in his career. 23 times, and he has a record of 21-2 against the spread as a dog. Texas is 12 point underdogs in this one. I'm going to take those points. As much as I think Georgia's a better team, I will roll with Texas plus the points in this one, and love that bet. So I will be taking Texas plus 11.5 in Vegas on this one. Okay, there you have it. I am once again Knup. Those are the Sports in Vegas odds college football look at the playoffs and some of the bowl games. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy the bowl games that are coming up. It's a great time to not only watch a lot of football, but to bet on football as well. So if you need anything in this area, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Sports in Vegas odds podcast. Thank you and have a great one.